Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this will be the Combat Series episode number 132 for you guys today. And to kick off the Combat Series this week, I'll be sharing my 2025 boxing awards. So these are the following 2025 boxing awards that I'll give to male fighters, female fighters, promoters, event of the year. You'll see all this in this segment. So event of the year. I think Ring Night of Champions card was the best boxing event that 2025 had to offer. 4 world title fights that happened on this card in 4 different divisions. A title fight at flyweight, a title fight at lightweight, a title fight at welterweight, and a title fight at light heavyweight. To kick off the night, Abdullah Mesa versus Sam Noquez, 2 undefeated fighters fighting for the vacant WBO lightweight title. In my opinion, was actually fight of the night, and both fighters came to fight. Both fighters gave fans an exchange, a good exchange of power punches, good exchanges of counter punching, good exchanges of clear championship boxing for all 12 rounds. Both fighters were fighting in the pocket. Both fighters fought well in range. And it was Abdullah Mason that pulled away in the championship rounds to outbox and outclass Sam Noquez to win the vacant WBO lightweight championship. Then at flyweight, it was a unified championship fight between Bam Rodriguez, a top 10 pound-for-pound star, fighting Fernando Matias. And Bam Rodriguez knocked out Fernando in dominant fashion to become the new unified flyweight champion in this division. Then the highly anticipated welterweight fight between Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. That was the biggest and most hyped up fight on that Night of Champions card. And it was Devin Haney that sent shockwaves around the boxing world, where he shockingly knocked down Brian Norman Jr. with a knockdown in the second round and outboxed and outclassed Brian Norman Jr. to become a 3-division world champion, winning the WBO welterweight championship. And then in the main event, you had David Benavidez in his first light heavyweight championship title defense against Anthony Yarde. He dismantled and dominated him, retaining his WBC light heavyweight championship. So in my opinion, I think the Ring Night of Champions card was the best boxing event that the calendar year 2025 had to offer. 4 good quality world title fights on one card. I think that took the icing on the cake for me to be boxing event of the year for 2025. Ooh, male fighter of the year. This one's very debatable. Male fighter of the year, I'm going to go with Terrence Crawford. I think Terrence Crawford should be labelized as male boxer of the year for the calendar year 2025. Now, again, very debatable between Terrence Crawford and Naoya Inoue, which direction you want to go in to claim who the male fighter of 2025 should be. Now, Naoya Inoue did have 4 successful Ring Magazine title defenses. That's the first time we've seen that in decades in the sport of boxing. But I got to give it to Terrence Crawford, because this man, Terrence Crawford, dared to be great, moving up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo Alvarez, the king of the super middleweight division. Canelo was undefeated at the time at 168, 2-time undisputed champion at 168, the only man to ever become undisputed at the super middleweight division in boxing history. And he did it twice within 4 years in the division. But Terrence Crawford, moving up, just outclassed and outboxed Canelo Alvarez in his own division, landed more power shots, landed more jabs, won the counter-punching battle, and fought well in different lateral movements, making Canelo Alvarez very confused and frustrated in the boxing ring, to the point where he didn't even know what the hell to do. And Terrence Crawford dominated Canelo Alvarez in a similar way that other guys defeated Canelo in the past. Floyd Mayweather, Dimitri Bivol. But I think Terrence Crawford's performance out-trumps what Floyd did to him back in 2013, what Dimitri Bivol did to him back in 2022, because Terrence Crawford moved up 2 weight classes without no rehydration clause, no catch weight clause, and beat Canelo at his own damn division. I think that deserves to be fighter of the year, in my opinion. And also, Terrence Crawford became a 3-time undisputed champion in 3 different weight classes, the first ever male boxer to accomplish that in male boxing history. So I do believe that Terrence Crawford should rightfully be claimed as the 2025 male boxer of the year. Fight of the year. Fight of the year, I would have to go with Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, the first fight that they had in the spring of 2025. Now, that was an absolute classic. I don't think there was any better boxing fight in the calendar year 2025 than Chris Eubank and Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, what they did in the beginning part of 2025. I mean, the family rich history that they had with Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank fighting each other in the early 90s. You had the whole story of Conor Benn being suspended for a year or so from the sport of boxing for testing positive for steroids, claiming that he would eat 30 eggs a day. But the buildup was so good, the fight was outstanding, and it was an absolute war. Great counter-punching skills, great boxing skills displayed. Two warriors, two gladiators going at it for 12 rounds. And it was Chris Eubank Jr. who won the first fight, but then when they had the rematch, Conor Benn won the second fight. And I don't think there needs to be trilogy based off how the second fight went, but I think the first fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn was fight of the year this year in 2025. Now, women's boxer of the year. Women's boxer of the year, we'll go to the welterweight division, and I'll give it to Mikaela Mayer. I think Mikaela Mayer deserves to be women's boxer of the year. She had a great year this year. She went 2-0 at welterweight, defeated Sandy Ryan. We know the history between herself and Sandy Ryan over the last couple of years, and it was Mikaela Mayer. She defeated Sandy Ryan to win the WBO welterweight championship in the first fight, and it was very close. That fight was very close. But then the second fight in the rematch, Mikaela Mayer left no answers. I mean, she left all the answers in the ring and left no answers for Sandy Ryan to capitalize in the ring. She outclassed and outboxed Sandy Ryan, sending a message to women's boxing that Mikaela Mayer should be in the top 10 pound-for-pound conversation in women's boxing. She also had an impressive unanimous decision victory against Mary Spencer, also to close out her year in 2025. Now, looking at the women's welterweight division, we should easily get undisputed welterweight championship fight between herself and Lauren Price, excuse me. Lauren Price, that holds the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF titles at this division. Clearly, this could be an undisputed championship fight that we see in women's boxing in 2026 that we should see. But I think Mikaela Mayer deserves to be women's boxer of the year. Knockout of the year, we'll give it to Brian Norman Jr. That knockout that he had in Japan. I don't want to butcher this guy's first or last name, so everybody knows the knockout I'm talking about when Brian Norman Jr., when he was the welterweight champion at the time, he defended the WBO title in Japan and hit his opponent with a picture-perfect check left hook and knocked his opponent out, retaining the title, and honestly sent his opponent in a coma for 5 to 6 weeks, unconscious after that shot. Like, the shot is just perfect, but then that just shows how dangerous this sport can be. One punch or one good shot to the equilibrium or the head, it could be all she wrote. So I'm glad this guy over in Japan recovered after waking up from a 5 to 6 week coma after the check left hook shot that Brian Norman Jr. landed. But I clearly think that's knockout of the year this year in the sport of boxing. Performance of the year. This goes back to my point a few moments ago. I'll give that to Terrence Crawford's performance over Canelo Alvarez. Now, this performance, I'm telling you guys, Terrence Crawford retired by the end of the year, but that's a perfect way to go out. You become undisputed in 3 different weight divisions, the first male boxer to ever do that in the 4-belt era. And the man just moved around like so picture perfect in that ring with the jab, the power shots, the beautiful counter shots. Against one of the greatest of all time, moving up 2 weight divisions. Again, that goes to my point earlier. No rehydration clause, no catch weight clause. That is one hell of a performance that the boxing community will forever remember. And that performance, I think, will stand the test of time of when Terrence Crawford moved up 2 weight divisions to defeat Canelo Alvarez. That clearly should be performance of the year this year. Ooh, loss of the year? Loss of the year, I'm going to give that to Ryan Garcia losing to Rolly Romero. Now, I think this was honestly one of the biggest upsets of 2025 in the sport of boxing. When Ryan Garcia lost to Rolly Romero, Ryan Garcia was coming off a 1-year suspension after testing positive for 2 PED tests when he faced Devin Haney, and that fight got labelized as a no contest. So Ryan Garcia was on the shelf for 12 to 13 months. And this was a gimme fight for Ryan Garcia. It wasn't an easy fight, but this was a fight that most of the box community had the thoughts and the anticipation that Ryan Garcia would knock out Rolly Romero. Well, that wasn't the case. And it's crazy to think that that should have happened because Rolly Romero was knocked out in previous fights against Gervonta Davis in dominant fashion. He was knocked out by Isaac Pitbull Cruz in dominant fashion. And honestly, it looked like Ryan Garcia should have knocked out Rolly Romero within 5 to 6 rounds. And I seen the old sparring footage of Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero when they fought each other back in Floyd Mayweather's gym, back in 2017, 2018. But honestly, it looked like Ryan Garcia was going to have the advantage over Rolly Romero. But when these two fighters finally fought, it was Rolly Romero that outboxed Ryan Garcia, winning 10, 11 rounds. I only give Ryan Garcia the first round of the fight. I think Rolly Romero just smoked him across the judges' scorecards. And he earned a huge double left hook knockdown in the second round. And then Ryan Garcia was gun shy. He didn't know how to use the check left hook. Rolly Romero took that away and took away his best attribute as the fight went on. And then Ryan Garcia didn't want to box, and Rolly Romero won that fight by unanimous decision. So I think that has to go down as one of the biggest loss of the calendar year 2025. And I'm going to get that award for the loss of the year, Ryan Garcia losing to Rolly Romero. Because also, they changed the trajectory of what could have happened in the second half in the sport of boxing, because Devin Haney took care of business against Jose Ramirez, and Ryan Garcia, if he defeated Rolly Romero, we would have saw the rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia rather than Devin Haney fighting Brian Norman Jr. for the WBO Welterweight Championship. And then Ryan Garcia was just out for the remainder of the year. So I think loss of the year definitely speaks volumes for the calendar year 2025. Now, upset of the year. Upset of the year, I'm going to take this to a PBC event. Upset of the year had to be Armando Resendiz defeating Caleb Plant. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this wasn't a pay-per-view event or like a big monumental event of the year, but it was a PBC fight card where Armando Resendiz defeated Caleb Plant at the super middleweight division. And honestly, I have to say this was upset of the year because this happened back in, late May? And if you guys remember, Armando Resendiz outboxed and outclassed Caleb Plant in a 12-round fight. And Caleb Plant heading into the fight was a negative 2,500 favorite heading into that fight. In the first half, it was competitive between Caleb Plant and Armando Resendiz. But in the second half of that fight, Armando Resendiz shockingly pulled away on the judges' scorecards, outboxed and outclassed Caleb Plant in the second half of that fight, which was a huge upset. And it seems like Caleb Plant's kryptonite is that Mexican boxing style. Look at all three of his losses: against Canelo Alvarez, against David Benavidez, and now he suffered his third loss early in the year against Armando Resendiz. And if Caleb Plant won that fight against Armando Resendiz, he would have fought Jermall Charlo, who made his return on that co-main event card. He would have fought him by the end of 2025 on a PBC event. So, again, another fighter that was supposed to do his job to get another big payday failed. And I think Armando Resendiz definitely sent shockwaves for the PBC and Al Heyman's plans for the calendar year 2025. But I think that was the biggest upset of the year. And nobody saw that coming in the sport of boxing. And last but not least, we'll go with Promoter of the Year. Promoter of the Year, I'll go with Turki Al-Sheikh. Now, Turki Al-Sheikh has promoted his ass off to make boxing great again and make boxing a better sport and a better place, because he has promoted some big fights since he's been in the sport. But 2025, he kept his foot on the gas pedal and never looked back. He promoted the Dimitri Bivol versus Arthur Beterbiev card. I mean, honestly, if fighters like Floyd Schofield or Daniel Dubois never got sick over in Saudi Arabia, that would have been one of the biggest cards of the 21st century. The card still turned out to be good with some late replacements, but that's just how much Turki Al-Sheikh really cares about this sport. I think, honestly, he promoted that card. You look at the Ring Magazine New York Times, or the New York Times Square card, where That featured Devin Haney on the card, Ryan Garcia on the card, Teofimo Lopez on the card, Rolly Romero on the card. He also promoted Shakur Stevenson versus William Sabeda. He also promoted Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford. He also promoted that Ring Night of Champions card that I just mentioned. So I do believe that Turki Al-Sheikh deserves a lot of credit, but I do believe he should be labelized as Promoter of the Year. But those are my 2025 boxing awards for the calendar year of 2025.